I always tell people start off doing some service, get good at something, and turn what you can do into a course. And when you do that, that's when you're making money when you sleep, right?
Welcome back to the Traffic Sales and Profit Show. My name is Lamar Tyler. I'm your host. So if you're looking for ways to grow your business or to generate wealth, you're in the right spot. And we have been celebrating the first 40 plus episodes of the Traffic Sales and Profit Show by taking a look back at some of our favorite moments. Now, if you missed part one, make sure you go back and watch that. Because in part one, we pulled out 4 can't miss episodes of the TSP Show. Now I'm bringing you 4 more that I want to make sure I bring to your attention. And I'm starting with episode 7. We sat down with my personal head of my money team. Now I don't just have these conversations out in public often, so I want to make sure you grab it. Head of my money team, Miss Amelia Thomas from Empire Capital Ventures. And she talked about the secrets of the 1%, that 1% of the wealthy, the 1% of the people that have, the same amount of money as the majority of the percentage beneath them. We talked about the things that they know that we don't. We talked about how they play chess and how we play checkers. And we talked about what you need to know and what you need to do to get started in your wealth journey. Check this out. Let's go back to episode 7 with Amelia Thomas beginning now. A lot of times, we were doing things that are not the things that they tell regular people to do. Mm-hmm. Is there like 2 different forms of education, like education or strategies or tactics, or whatever it may be, that the wealthy are told to do this and then, middle-class Americans told to do something else? Mm-hmm. Is the same things, different levels of understanding? What's your thoughts around that?
Absolutely. The reality is, again, going back to that 97% conversation, right? 97% of the advisors in the marketplace, they're servicing individuals who are middle-class Americans. They're from a middle-class American background. They did not come from wealth either, and therefore they don't know. It's not the client that they serve. It's not the people that they hang around with the most. And that's not their background. And so they genuinely don't know. They genuinely believe that the information that they have is what's available out there. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And therefore, if you are looking to really create wealth and build wealth and, have, $100 million in assets that you're looking to pass down, you have to get around people who have access to that level of information and who can partner you with other individuals to help you create that. That's not going to happen by happenstance. And so I think we need to do a better job in our community at evaluating our advisors and who we're taking information from. Because, for someone who is just, has $100,000 available each year to invest, investing that in the stock market is not going to get you to $100 million. It's just not. Not unless you are, on the other side of that accredited investor equation and you're doing something different. But in the general stock market, it's not likely to happen.
Now, what are some of the biggest mistakes that individuals are making that are keeping them from wealth? And I say that because, you've heard me say it, and I say it here on the podcast all the time. For a long time, I think I was under the impression that if I made money, I would build wealth. But then I realized it's literally 2 different educations, which I think is why a lot of people can generate a lot of money through job or through entrepreneurship, whatever it may be, but still may not end up with a lot of money, right? Because they don't know how to build, grow, protect, and then transfer wealth. What do you think are some things that are like keeping people from really building, lasting generational wealth?
Well, the first thing is you have to control your first or second largest expense, and that is taxes. A lot of people don't think about that, but particularly when you are, higher net worth, you have a few $1 million in taxable income per year, you're probably paying $1 million in taxes, or, $500,600,000. So the first thing you have to do is figure out how to control your taxes. And that actually requires a different set of education, right? Because there's only so much of a home office deduction you can write off. There's only so many cars you can buy in the business, and, taking advantage of Augusta, all these things they tell you to do, right? There's only so many deductions you could take. at a certain point, you actually have to work to actively build your wealth and investments that the government wants you to invest in order for you to take advantage of reducing your taxable liability. And so if you focus on gaining that level of education, like what are the things that I can invest in that create really nice tax benefits? So I have even more money to invest because I'm reducing my tax bill, $200,000-$300,000 a year. That is how you start to build your wealth. That's, number one. And then number two, when you're talking about, going to school, education, time and effort, time and effort plays a really large factor in your tax bill.
Okay.
You hear the term passive income thrown around quite a bit, but people really do not understand what that means in terms of saving money in taxes. Everyone is all like, oh, I want all these passive income streams, but the IRS has a very, very particular definition of what they consider passive.
Okay.
And individuals who can truly meet that definition of a passive investor has the keys to wealth building in their hand. Like they can literally have tax-free wealth if they can truly meet that definition of a passive investor.
Okay. All right. So that was good. I want to make sure all of y'all have caught that, right? Got that last piece. One of the biggest things holding you back from building wealth is the fact that you're overpaying, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to taxes, when it comes to the money you're giving back to the government.
Mm-hmm.
Keep telling y'all, right? Them tax returns. Y'all, you're getting excited. That is your money that the government is giving you back because you overpaid. And something else I always say too, you heard me say, business owners should not be doing their own taxes.
Absolutely not.
Even when I want a business owner to do my own taxes, but like no matter how much you think you don't know everything, right? Like you don't know the tax code and the opportunities, and you are paying more than you should be paying in taxes if you don't have a qualified professional doing it.
94% of Americans overpay in taxes.
Wow.
94.
Now, I want to go back to something you said a second ago, because you talked about the fact that, hey, there are things that the government wants you to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Excellent question. So if you really think about it, when you see various tax credits, you hear like, oh, there's a tax credit for buying this solar vehicle. There's a tax credit for rehabbing historical houses. There's a tax credit for investing in certain depressed and economically disadvantaged communities. That is the government saying, hey, we realize that there's an opportunity here. We have no interest in doing the investing ourselves. And therefore, we're going to create a tax benefit for private investors to come in and place their money in these investments to create economic engines and to bring these areas out of poverty, or to put more research and development into solar and renewable energy and oil and gas and all these things. And if you do that and help us out, we're going to reward you. We're going to reward you by giving you this tax credit, which is a dollar for dollar return on your money. It's not a deduction, it's a credit. And it's something that can still help you build wealth. And so there are a number of those vehicles that exist. Real estate is one of those things where you can actually partner with the government, invest exactly how they want you to invest and not pay taxes along the way.
I love it. So you also mentioned another word, and I want to make sure we're clear for the people listening. Mm-hmm. You talked about an accredited investor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what exactly is accredited investor?
Mm-hmm. So the easiest way to remember it is 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
This is a person that has either $1 million in net worth. So after you take your assets minus your liabilities, you still have $1 million remaining. Or you have an income of $200,000 a year. And if you're married, filing jointly, an income of $300,000 a year. 1, 2, 3. $1 million, $200,000, $300,000.
All right.
If you can meet that definition and you've had that income for 2 of the past 3 years, you could be considered an accredited investor, which is an opportunity for you to invest in different investments and different deals that are not available to regular, everyday Americans.
Okay.
In fact, they probably have never heard of that term. Their advisors have probably never heard of that term because it is not something that legally can really be spoken about in the masses.
So, all right. So I love it, because I know some people saying, all right, hold on a second, Ms. Thomas. What are you telling me? there are things that I can't invest in.
That's correct. And you'll never know about them.
All right. So that's a lot for people to swallow, right? So what type of things would they be? I mean, you can't give them specific investments. Like what type of things are accredited investors have access to or privy to that a regular person would?
So various private equity deals, for example, Pinky Coles, right? The owner of Slutty Vegan. She just did a Series A raise, $25 million. Those are accredited investors at that table, on that deal, not anyone else, right? Other small startups that are issuing equity in their companies, they're raising money, they're getting ready to go public on the stock exchange. Those are typically accredited investors.
Now, I told you that Amelia was going to have a ton of nuggets, and the way she makes you realize that it's two different games being played as it relates to wealth is just fantastic. But even more fantastic is the way she can break it down so that we all can understand. So I want to make sure you dive into the full episode, because if you don't get a hold of what she's talking about and what she's training in that episode, you can miss out on a lot of money over not just the next year or the next decade. I'm talking about the next generation. Now, let's go to episode 37. I want you to meet Alicia Lyttle, a very good friend of mine, a TSP Mastermind member. And we're going to talk about how to start making money online. Because in order to generate wealth, you need to have money coming in that you can then deploy, right, into your wealth generating principles, your wealth generating vehicles. And this is the episode that's going to show you how to make more money by using these online principles that Alicia is going to break down. And the thing I loved about this episode is that when she broke it down, she made it so plain, so simple, and so attainable to let you realize that no matter who you are, no matter what you do, there's an expertise and a knowledge that you have that you can just tap into the internet to begin making more money today. Check this out. You're going to love it.
It's just so interesting that people sometimes can't even assess their current skills and translate that into the online environment. But whatever skills you have, they translate into the online environment. And these can be skills like, accounting, bookkeeping, so your career skills, but they can also just be skills that you're passionate about. So I have people who are passionate about fitness who are doing fitness online with people. They're doing Zoom sessions online on Fiverr, on Upwork, or just, doing their Zoom sessions with people. We have one personal trainer who she's being hired to do videos that people who have apps that have, those apps where you can go on the app and get your exercise sessions on. She sells her exercise videos to those apps and makes residual income from that. So she packages them up and says, here, I have these videos. This is how much you're going to pay me if you want them. And she's just getting business over and over from all these apps buying her videos. Like there's space for everyone. I have people that have, put together videos of them cooking and they're selling those, and they're teaching people on Zoom how to cook. Whatever you're passionate about or those skills that you have, that's step number one, is to assess that. And if you don't know what it is, like call 5 friends and ask them, hey, what am I good at? Because sometimes we can't see, we can't see the picture when we're in the frame.
Right.
So call people and ask them, hey, what am I good at? And you'll be surprised what people say. But don't just call 1 or 2, call 5. I found that 5 gives you a big enough picture to understand what you're good at.
I'm sorry, yeah. In your view of it, should it be something they're passionate about?
It should be, because when you're passionate about it, or at least like it enough, then you'll love to do the business, because this is something that you're going to do a complete business around. So I've had people that are in a career and they say, you know what, I want to do something completely different. So they've been doing, let's say, administrative work, and they are like, I never want to be in the administrative industry again. So they find something new that they want to do, which is number 2.
Okay.
So that's the second thing you need to do, is to say, okay, maybe there's something new that I want to do and that I will always wanted to explore. So that is learn a new skill. So number 1 is to assess your current skills. And number 2 is see if there's a new skill that you've always wanted to learn. Seems like everybody these days wants to learn graphic design because it's so trending with social media the way that it is.
Yep.
And right. with Canva being so awesome, like so many people build businesses just around this one tool, canva.com. So learn a new skill. And then you can turn that new skill into a business. And then number 3 is to market yourself. So take these skills that you have and turn them into a service online and put them on places like Fiverr.com and Upwork.com, and then promote them on social media. So many of my students don't even get a chance to put their services on Fiverr or Upwork because they just make a flyer and put it on social media. And you never know who needs that or who shares it with someone else. So you put a flyer up and you say, hey, I do transcription for podcasters. Now it's getting shared. Oh, I know a podcaster who needs that. Or, hey, I do book covers for authors. Whatever it is that you do, talk about it and put it out there and put your skills out there, and you'll see that people will pick up on it. Everybody knows somebody who needs something.
Yeah. This is an interesting conversation because as you're talking, I'm thinking about the fact that so many of the things you've said have strong core technology pieces that aren't really complicated.
No.
But really, like you said, you mentioned Canva, and somebody really build a business around Canva.
Yeah.
Where Canva allows what, maybe even just 5-10 years ago, right? Like you would have to have somebody very skilled in something like Photoshop, which is expensive, doing, which is, I still can't navigate Photoshop, right? But somebody that's a deep dive expert in navigating through now can, in a couple clicks of knowing what they're doing on Canva, create something that looks professional, that looks amazing, but still the average person, probably majority of America doesn't even know Canva exists.
That's so true.
Right? Which is like, I'm sure somebody's watching this saying, what is Canva? Which is like a graphic design software online, just very simple and templatized, I guess is a kind of way to explain it. But like majority of America probably doesn't know Canva exists. People that know it exists probably still don't use it. There's another section of people probably do use it, still don't know how to use it properly, or may not just have an eye for it. So somebody just dedicating their time to say, hey, I'm gonna learn everything I can about Canva, can then create a business around it.
That's right.
It reminds me of a conversation I had with Ronnie, who's my wife for new viewers, earlier this week. And we were talking about Peloton. And Ronnie said, Lamar, like somebody could totally just create a business around Peloton because they got all these courses and stuff, and just create like a program for somebody of what they should actually do inside of it. Because there's a whole lot of courses and stuff, but still when you go inside, it's like, what course should I take? Right? Exactly. So she was like, somebody like literally a fitness person could just say, hey, these are all the things. And I was saying, yeah, just adding accountability. And that's like a whole thing. Again, like not even built on, hey, I got to go out and build a bike and a treadmill and all the infrastructure to stream classes, but just helping people use the classes that are already there better.
Yeah, I've made over $100,000 on a course that I have just showing people how to use Canva. It's called the Design Masterclass.
Wow.
People just take a course to learn how to use Canva. And so Canva is not my software, but I'm selling a course to teach people how to use it better.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. You mentioned a course. What about creating digital assets?
Yeah,
like courses, ebooks, things like that.
Yeah,
like nowadays, is that still like the thing to do, a great thing to do, or is it like too late for people to get in that game? What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm in that game. I love that game. That's my $1 million game right there. So, I always tell people start off doing some service, get good at something, and turn what you can do into a course. And when you do that, that's when you're making money when you sleep, right? So there's 2 ways that I really like to make money when I sleep. So I'm going to come back to the course in a minute. The first way is to have an agency. So we talked about Canva as an example. So my sister Lorette does this. She has a business all built around doing graphic design for businesses, but she doesn't do any of the work. So somebody buys her service for her 5 images for $50, and she has someone else who does all the 5 images, delivers it to the client, and Lorette pays this lady $5 and she keeps $45. So that's the agency model. We both have social media agencies where we do social media design, all that for clients, and we've got that all outsourced. And then the next one is the course model, which I absolutely love. So we create courses around all the different things that we know how to do. And so we have micro courses. So that is if we just learn how to do one thing. So a great example is we know how to help local businesses to bring in more customers using a Facebook check-in strategy. So we developed a course around this, and it's just one strategy. It's not Facebook marketing for local business. It's just one little strategy. And we sell that course, and we made 6 figures on this one little course. And most of the sales, most, if not all of the sales, have come in from affiliates, getting paid 50% of the sale to market and sell this course. Affiliates are our main source of generating traffic. And so we build courses around these little things that we know how to do, that we're successful at. And so everything that I've been able to do and accomplish, a course is built around. I have an Airbnb. So do I have an Airbnb course? Of course I do. I've done last year, I've learned how to fix and flip homes. I fixed and flipped 4. I'm really excited about that. So is there a course coming out about that? Of course. And I did that. All the fix and flipping I did it with the knowledge of saying, okay, I'm going to do this knowing that I'm going to create a course. So I have to think about my students first. Like, what are they going to want to know in real estate investing, fixing and flipping? They're going to want to know how to do it with, little money down, without using their personal credit. So I'm going into it saying, okay, how can I do it knowing what they are going to want to know? And so everything that you're able to do successfully that solves a problem for someone else, just put it into a course format and keep it as simple as possible, right? Turn on your camera, turn on, Zoom or Loom. I like using both of those tools, record what you can do, and then package it up into a course format. So many course platforms out there. And I mean, you're the king of courses. I've watched a million of yours. And so, there's so much to be said about what you can do. A lot of my students that do, they get really good at doing transcription for podcasters. So then they create a course around that, and then they're selling, how to do transcription for podcasters, or they're selling a course for podcasters saying, here's the 10 ways you can repurpose your content. So, taking what you know as a service, or what that is something that works for someone, and packaging it up into your knowledge is such an amazing thing to do.
All right, now we're going to continue this money theme. Alicia just broke down how you can make more money. Now we're going to go to episode 18, where my brother Ash Cash talked about having a money mindset, a wealthy mindset. My man Ash on this episode talked about the fact that abundance is your birthright. And he did it. I want to say he yelled from the mountaintops, but he literally was sitting right in the chair beside me. But I felt like he was yelling from the mountaintops. This Ash is a big, loud dude, and he's going to push on you the fact that you need to know that abundance is a birthright piece. The fact that you need to know that you can have more than you've ever dreamed about. And if you didn't know that, if you didn't know his story, check out this episode. It's going to blow you away.
I was working at Blockbuster Videos. I was like I started at 17, and then by 19, I had already become an assistant manager. The next step at Blockbuster was store manager. I was like, I don't want to really be a store manager. And fate would have it.
In retrospect, that probably was a good move.
Exactly. That was one of the best moves, right? But, one of the assistant managers, she was working 2 jobs. She was working at Blockbuster and at Chase Bank.
Okay.
And one day she just came in and was like, yo, Chase is hiring. Like, do you want to, be a banker? And I was like, man, I got the experience already. And being a teller paid more than being assistant manager. And I already knew that I didn't want to be a store manager. And I looked at bank, and I was like, if I'm a teller making more money, at least, there's so many different things I could do. So I said, let me just try it. I didn't even know I would like it as much. But I think that the moment that I walked in there, I think the moment that changed my life, right? That's why representation is important. I walked in there, and there was a black guy, fast shout to Michael Black, Jamaican, who was the branch manager in Madison Square Garden. I said, wow, like this black dude, like runs this whole thing. Like he's the boss. Like all of these white people, like he's the boss of everybody. I said, oh, and so it just made me realize that the opportunity was so much greater. And so as I, jumped in and just realized how good it was to help people manage money like this. It wasn't only about the money that I was making.
Yeah.
There was like this feeling where people would come in and you would give them solutions, and banking in the past was like a service. It wasn't sales. You go into a bank now, they trying to sell you something.
Right.
But before it was like a service. So they would like really sit down with you and ask you for solutions, and and that was the most gratifying part of being a banker for me. And so I just wanted to keep seeing like you're like how far can I take it? And the farthest I got was a CEO. I was a CEO of a credit union. And that was, I did that for about a year, but I was like, all right, now it's time, to take my talents, to South Beach, take my talents, take my talent, worldwide.
Yeah.
And then I started, doing financial education, writing books and things of that.
So how old were you when you were the CEO of
31.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
still was young.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I think I was probably one of the youngest CEOs of a federally chartered bank at the time. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, 31 years old.
So I know for a while, because you got numerous books and you started writing. Were you writing the books while you also were in the bank working those positions, or did that come later?
Yeah. So my first book came out in 2009. I actually remember writing it, Mind Right, Money Right, 10 Laws of Financial Freedom. I opened a bank in Co-op City in the Bronx, brand new branch, $8 million project. I used to come to the bank early, and I wrote it on my BlackBerry. So I'm giving y'all, what I'm saying? This was 2008. I literally would come to the bank, sit, and be on my BlackBerry typing this book up. And so my first book, I was Mind Right, Money Right, 10 Laws of Financial Freedom. I actually wrote that while being a branch manager at Chase.
Wow.
And throughout the years, funny story though, Ashcash is a nickname that I had when I was young. I was licensed at the time. Y'all can't do nothing to me now. I was licensed at the time, right, with Chase. So I had my 63, life, health. And when you're licensed, you have to get permission to do any outside activities.
Okay. And
so I could not write the book with the name Ash Exantis, which is my real name, because they would find out. And so I was like, you know what? Ask for forgiveness, not for permission. So I was like, oh, let me use the alias Ash Cash, right? And then so I wrote the book, under the name Ash Cash, was still a banker, right? It was like Superman, Clark Kent. You know what I'm saying? It was Ash Exantis, and then Superman was Ash Cash, and I wrote the book, and then eventually Ash Cash got bigger than Ash Exantis. In fact, like if you Google Ash Cash, Ash Exantis comes up and vice versa, right? So Ash Cash got bigger, and I just could never go back to it. But yeah, I wrote, I started writing the book while I was working at the bank. And then, I've always been a believer of multiple streams of income. So even when, I had, jobs, I was still making sure that I was doing stuff on the side, because, at the end of the day, I didn't own the job, right? I could get fired, downside, the recession, all that could happen. And what happens to me? But if I have a book, like I still, to this day, get paid from a book that I wrote in 2009.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? To this day. And it's a popular book. It got my face on it now. When I first wrote the first edition, it didn't have my face on it. But then once I wound up quitting, the bank, I revised it, put my face on it. But it's one of my top selling books to this day. And so I love the motto, the wealth principle of changing your relationship with money, right? Instead of working hard for money, make money work hard for you. Create an asset that you do one time, that asset you created one time, and let it pay you over and over and over again.
This episode of the Traffic Sales and Profit podcast is brought to you by my book, Traffic Sales and Profit, the ultimate step-by-step guide to creating consistent business revenue online. I want to get you a free copy, right? Paperback copy at that. None of this digital mumbo jumbo. How do you get your hands on it? Go to www.freetspbook.com. That's good. And and even what you talked about with the balancing the side hustle with your main job, right? That takes me back. I worked at a TV station, ran the IT department. And so because I was a manager, I had like certain paperwork I had to fill out in non-compete stuff. And I'll never forget going into HR, and we were doing our first movie. And I was like, okay, this is a TV station.
Right.
And we doing like they didn't really care about none of the other stuff we're doing. And they were like, what's this thing you're doing? I was like, it's a little movie.
Yeah.
This family and friends, nobody will ever see it, right? Then years later, here we are,
exactly.
Right? But I love that. Now, when you did the book, you launched the book, I want to talk about the transition between working the 9-to-5, leaving the bank, and then going full-time in entrepreneurship. Was it at this point you got multiple books, they got money coming in, speaking gigs attached? Was it just the fact that, hey, you feel like the next phase of my life is ready and maybe all the revenue isn't there, but I'm going to figure it out?
Yeah.
What did that look like for you?
Man, it was a disaster. I was making all this money, living a 6-figure lifestyle. I bought my first home. I was 25 years old. My wife and I, married, had a kid. My daughter at the time was 2 years old. And I said, yo, matter of fact, when I wrote my first book, Black Enterprise, wrote something on me. And back then, magazines was
It was everything.
that was everything. Yeah. So Black Enterprise.
Black Enterprise is the
Black Enterprise. You know what I'm saying? Get on
right
that.
There.
So I got on Black Enterprise, Hot 97. I said, oh, I walked into my job like, yo, I quit. Like, I'm gone.
It is a CEO job.
No, I was at Carver Bank at the time.
Okay.
So yeah, after I left Chase, I went to Carver to run a black bank. I was like, oh, this is the black bank. I'm from Harlem.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go right to 125th Street. And I walked in, I talked to the bosses. I was like, listen, you know what? It's time for me to go. I thought I made it. You know what I'm saying? I wound up getting a contract to teach financial literacy to foster care, kids. So I was like, I'm lit. I got this little contract. It's gonna help me out, and I'm gonna be on television, and I'm gonna become this multi-millionaire. And I didn't really understand entrepreneurship. And so I fell flat on my face. Home went through foreclosure, car about to get repossessed, like literally, not even using hyperbole, like literally I had to figure out how we were gonna eat, man. It was like one of the most embarrassing times of my life, because you gotta think, the fame didn't stop though.
Exactly.
It didn't stop. So I'm still on television. I'm still doing book signings, trying to make this thing work. But then I go back home and I got a for sale sign on my lawn, because I can't afford the mortgage anymore. You know what I'm saying? So that taught me a very important lesson on making sure everything, like, your numbers, like everything. Don't, people say jump out on faith. I would never say jump out on faith, right? Faith is you believing in yourself and believing in what you plan, though, right? Like having a plan. It ain't saying, yo, I have faith that I can fly. You ain't never flew before. No. Like learn aerodynamics. Like, all right, I'm gonna jump out this window, but I know that gravity's gonna make me fall to the ground. So I'm gonna jump out the window with a parachute and I'm gonna pull it you gotta know all of that stuff. And I didn't. I jumped out and I thought I was gonna land on my feet, but I fell hard. But it was I wouldn't take it back though, because what wound up happening was, matter of fact, I even threw a retirement party. Let me tell you how arrogant I was, right? Let me tell you how arrogant I was. I even threw a retirement party. So it was right before my 30th birthday.
You can't ever come back after that.
I was like, I had at the 40-40 club. Like I went crazy with it. Thank God. I think Facebook took away the albums, because they're probably still on my Facebook, right?
All right, so we've been taking you through a money theme. We started with Amelia Thomas, The Secrets of the 1%. Then we went to Alicia Lyttle, and Alicia broke down how to begin making money online. Then we went to my guy, Ashcash. Ashcash talked about the fact that abundance is your birthright and having a money mentality and changing the way you think. Now I want to go to my favorite person in the world, my favorite guest. In episode 8, I had probably the person who's been on more episodes than anyone else in the Traffic Sales and Profit Show besides me, my wife, Ronnie Tyler. And we sat down and talked about how to build a multiple $million business with your spouse. Now, the thing I loved about this conversation, this was the catalyst to us having additional conversations here on the show. So if you're thinking about going into business with a family member, going into business with a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a loved one, no matter what it may be, I want you to make sure you're checking out all the episodes that Ronnie and I do as we talk about finding strengths and weaknesses, as we talk about mitigating and moving beyond risk, right? And your risk tolerance and what you can actually do. And as we talk about building something together for the greater good with someone else. Check out this episode. And then once you watch it, I'll be back to give you instructions on how to be more successful with the Traffic Sales and Profit Show. So let's go into our story a little bit, because I want to, there's a lot of people listening that probably don't know our backstory. So let's talk about how it worked with us, and then we'll give and share some tips for the people that are watching as well. So our story, you wanted to be an entrepreneur since you were how old?
0.
0. From birth, you wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Never.
Oh, that means never. Okay. I thought you meant from birth you want to be an entrepreneur. So with our story, I was lifelong, always don't want to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
You never really wanted to be an entrepreneur.
I like that consistent paycheck from corporate every 2 weeks. Entrepreneurship feels like gambling. It just feels risky. And, I don't like to take risks. I don't even gamble when we go to Vegas. So
I like to gamble.
yeah, I know you
So I
do.
like to be an entrepreneur. How about them apples? No,
Yeah.
so for you, it feels like gambling, right? It may just be your personality type.
Right.
There is inherent risk. I will admit there is inherent risk with entrepreneurship that some people just may not be on for that ride, right?
It's definitely a decision that you would have to make, yeah.
And when we met, for everybody watching, when we met, I was a contractor by choice, right? IT background. I probably worked 20-something, 30 different companies. Ronnie had
one job. Just one ever besides our business. Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, what is this? What part of the game is this? You only work one place. But one place, right? So we were kind of total opposites. I was more of a risk taker. You were more conservative. But two totally different opposite people were able to come together and create a sizable business, right? Bigger than your average American business. One of the fastest growing privately held companies in America. Now let's talk about that story, how we got there. Because from the very beginning, it wasn't like, you quickly found out I was interested in entrepreneurship, want to be an entrepreneur. At the time, I was still working 9 to 5.
Because I said I needed a man with benefits, right?
Yeah, and it was a drag on me. I mean, I was like, man, I was out here living. I was living, y'all. I was free balling. You know what I'm saying? Did my little contract, 3 months, 6 months. They say, Lamar, when I hire you, bring you on. I'd be like, nah, that's not me, right? So then I just bounced to the next place. I met Ronnie. I remember talking to you, and you'd be like, what happened if you don't get another contract? Like, I don't get another contract, got some money saved up, I get another one. What happens then? I say, hey, you know what? Ain't a big deal, right? I'll just take a lesser rate for a few months and then get back in the game. But you weren't cool with like that. I mean, was it fear? Was it anxiety? Like, what was it?
It was just foreign to me. And it was foreign to me because, my father has always been an entrepreneur, but he always worked the 9 to 5 too. So he just basically had two things going, but not necessarily that full-time entrepreneurship. And then it wasn't until I got older that my mom became an entrepreneur. But growing up, I just wasn't around a lot of people that just were 100% entrepreneurs, right? I knew of people, a lot of Black people and a lot of Black families have like businesses and side things that they're doing, but not necessarily full-time. And so that's the only thing that I knew. And I just never even thought about entrepreneurship really in that way.
All right. So I was, as mentioned, right, as a career contractor, 1099, independent contractor, even though I was working these little different contracts. But we got married. Ronnie said, hey, you know what? I really want you to get a full-time W-2 position, which I did. I'll give you a short version story, which I did. I did that, but then I still was doing things on the side, right? Because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And at what point, let's step back. So we did that. We launched a brand.
Yes. We launched Black and Married with Kids, right?
There we go. Yep. blackandmarriedwithkids.com. We launched that. It kind of took off.
Mm-hmm.
We started the blog with just me and Ronnie writing. Then we went from me and Ronnie to me and Ronnie the editor, then me and Ronnie and writers. We had 40 plus writers writing.
Mm-hmm.
We started doing documentary films. We had the docs releasing. First one in 2009. And in 2010, I remember things getting so hectic, I wasn't able to do both.
Right.
It was like Ronnie worked one place, she had like 9 months of leave per year, every year. Because she only worked one place all her life, right? Me, on the other hand, I had like 0. But like these huge business opportunities were coming that required us to travel, to do things. I literally just didn't have the time to do both. So I remember saying like, hey, you know what? Like at some point we had to make a decision on which way to go and what we should actually be doing in the process.
Right.
What made you feel comfortable? Because you originally said you weren't comfortable with entrepreneurship before. What made you feel comfortable at that point with me being able to roll and say, hey, you know what? I'm leaving the job and doing full-time entrepreneur.
So I think it was a variety of things. We had, you left your job in 2010 and we started a business in 2007. And so over that time period, it was just a consistency. Like we didn't just start and stop. We kept going. We were constantly bringing in revenue and doing things to bring in more revenue. And then I could also see that we weren't going to be able to grow and scale unless one of us stopped and focused on the business full time. So I know we had gotten to the point where we needed to really focus our attention. Because if we can do this much part-time, then what could we do if we could focus on it? And so it was just that consistency with that and just being able to see that. Because I just needed that security, right? And I could see that.
And I love it, right? We talk about that transformation just for the backstory. Leading up to that time over those years, the one thing we did is we got closer. We paid down, got rid of all of our debt. So we crushed all the debt, right? We got as lean as we could get so that we didn't have to live off as much. We built some money up in the business, but the money in the business did not replace our salaries, right?
No.
We both had like, 6-figure plus salaries. So, I think the business was doing $75K when I went full time, which was not $75K in profit.
Yeah,
it was
I don't even know if it was
$75K
doing that. Yeah.
period, right? It was like period plus before we take all the expenses and things and the writers and the freelancers and the editor and the images we licensed and the plugins and everything else that we had to buy and purchase, branding, right? Everything else we had to buy and purchase kind of came out of that as well. And I one of the things that we always talked about is that, a lot of people wait until they say like, hey, till I grow the business here. I probably would still be there if that was the case, because it probably just wouldn't have been possible to do both. I probably would have done it, but it would take a long time. But instead, we got just enough so that, hey, you know what? You were still working. It was some money coming in from the business, right? That was enough to kind of, for me to take on like a little bit of what we could. And then we had a plan to grow it to the next level so that you could come full time into the business, right?
Yeah.
Because the thinking was that if we were able to accomplish all of this in our worst hours, 9 p.m., because we also had 4 small children on the age of 11 or 12, right? So we were able to accomplish all this, after work, after bath time, then bedtime, 9, 10 o'clock at night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, every single day to make it happen. And what would happen? We were able to push through this during the daytime.
So one of the things that was significant, and a lot of people don't get this, is sometimes you got to take a step back in order to go forward, right? We had 2 6-figure salaries, right? And we went down to essentially 1, right? So being able to live off of 1 salary, because when you started a business, you weren't necessarily like really bringing that back home. It was really reinvest that back into the business.
All of it.
And I think a lot of times people want to maintain that level, maintain that lifestyle. And one thing that helped us was we took a step back. We paid off our cars. When we moved, the house that we moved to, the mortgage was like $1,000 a month cheaper almost.
Right.
And so we saved on the mortgage and we were able to live off of 1 salary for a very, very long time before we were able to, start bringing salaries in for ourselves. And so that was definitely instrumental in us being able to make decisions, being able to make moves, to invest in the business, to take risk and things of that nature. So it was planned. It wasn't something that we just woke up and said, oh, I'm just going to quit my job. I see some people doing that too, and they quit long before they're ready, long before they can even see that their business is actually making any type of consistent money or any plan for how they're going to make the money. And it was very, very intentional. I remember people coming to me and saying, "Why your husband ain't working?" And I'm thinking, he is working. He's working a lot of hours.
I was working harder than them. How about them apples?
Yeah. And so, but people on the outside, they don't understand. They literally don't understand. And so that's going to be key to couples in business. Is just like having your goals, setting them, and working towards them together, and not worrying about what everybody else has to say.
Listen, I enjoyed myself, and I hope you did, watching that clip from me and Ronnie. And again, I want to remind you, that's just one of 3 episodes that we did together. So if you enjoyed that one, don't only go back and watch that one, but I want you to find the other 2 as well. Now, what I want to share is that we've got more great episodes. And what if I told you the episodes coming up are even better? We've been in the lab, we've been in the studio, and we've been interviewing some of the best and brightest in the Black community that are ready to not only come and share their stories, but come and share specific strategies that you can use to hit the next level as it relates to your business, as it relates to your bank account, sometimes even as it relates to your boo, right? We might even have a couple more relationship conversations here. But it all starts with you making sure that you lock in and you join us every single week. We release new episodes. Also, if you are not already, I want you to make sure you're watching the full videos of the episodes on The Convo, our new network catered towards Black business and Black wealth. You can find us at www.theconvo.tv online. You can also get a free registration and get access to the app on your Apple and Android devices, on Roku, or even on the Amazon Fire Stick. We're everywhere that we need to be in order to give you easy access to the information that we have. It's a new day, but guess what? We need you to make sure you're tuning in, and we also need you to help us spread the word. I appreciate you. I can't wait until we get to this next 40 episodes. And I can't wait to hear your success stories about how the Traffic Sales and Profit Show is changing your life. Peace. We'll see you next week.